All right, everybody, welcome. It is Wednesday, October 9th here in the Western Hemisphere. If you're on the other side of the world logging in, it is Thursday, October 10th, I think 10 a.m. in the morning for those of you out in Australia. You are here for 5 secrets to writing a resume that gets you hired. My name is Albert, founder of Albert's List, a job search and side hustle education community serving over 50,000 people. With me today is Gretchen. Hellman, founder of Outside the Box Coaching, and she's here to talk to you about resume writing. Resume writing, as you know, and your resume or CV, depending on where you are in the world, is the thing that gets you in the door when it comes to applying for a job. It is a marketing document that tells a story and more. And Gretchen's here to tell you the 5 secrets that hiring managers might be withholding from you as they read your resume and put it into the yes or no pile to bring you to the next step. We'll be recording today's webinar and we will be sending it to you in a follow-up. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the webinar chat or the Q&A. Gretchen, good to have you back. Let's get going.
Okay, thanks, Albert. Always great to do more work with you. Always good to work with a fellow Bronco. Albert and I both went to Santa Clara University. So, yeah, and please feel free to drop some questions about resumes into the question box. I like to take a pause. I'd like to keep this as interactive as possible because you guys are here with me. And so I'd like you guys to be here with me. So if you've got any burning questions about resumes, please put them in the chat. I'm going to be going back to them as we move on. And so we're here to talk about resume writing. So my name's Gretchen Hellman. I'm a master career coach and strategist. A little bit about me. I'm an engineer by training, but I spent most of my time in enterprise B2B technology, specifically software. And I was in product management and product marketing. And eventually I led those functions for companies. I really enjoyed my work, but I was really hungry to be with humanity more. And so after I'd hit about 20 years, I finally had the senior before my vice president. I really decided to make a big shift. And I went through a career transition and I studied life and leadership coaching. And I studied what gets us stuck, what gets us unstuck. I'm also trauma informed. I'm continually studying more about neuroscience and about the way the brain works. And I combine all of that in my practice to help my clients understand what they want for work, how to get what they want, and how to make the most of what they have. My tech background helps me a lot because I actually take a product management approach to all of the tools that we have here. When I originally started being a career coach, my first thought was, I can't be a career coach. I don't know anything about resumes. And so I was like, well, I was trying to be in growth mindset. So I said, well, you should go get a book on resumes. So I ordered one of the top ranked books, the 2 top ranked books actually on Amazon about resumes. And I eagerly awaited their arrival to see all the secrets. They arrived, I cracked them open, and I immediately said, these are terrible resumes, and this is terrible advice. Now, how did I know that? Well, first of all, I was a hiring manager. So I knew what a good resume looked like and what a bad resume looked like. I also knew how I selected candidates. And it was just kind of a bunch of generalist form over function. It wasn't talking to the reader about how to connect with the job market. And so that was the moment that I realized that my ability to study how the world works, architect and design solutions was really, really needed in the career world because there's so little science. And so I joined that with life and leadership coaching because our brain does really funny things when we go to do 2 things in life, look for love and look for work. Most of us will experience this phenomenon that when it comes time to help our friends with their careers, it's super easy. The world is in living color, it's expansive, we're using our strategic thinking brain. But when we go to think about our own careers, the world ratchets in, gets really tight. All those beautiful spectrums of possibility turn into yes, no, abort mission thinking. And the reason why is we have a stress reaction. So so I work with my clients to help them make highly conscious choices about careers and to write their resumes from a highly conscious place. So one of the things I'm also going to say is I'm going to give you a lot of great rules on how to think about your resume, but because of that phenomenon that I call the career brain blank, career work is best done as a team sport. So find a friend, help them write their resume. You have them help you write your resume. It'll really go much better. But we're going to get to the scientific rules. So before we do, by now I've worked with over 1,000 clients, just so you know where I'm coming from. I've worked with everything from high school students on up to senior vice presidents at Fortune 500 companies, CEOs of startups, and from many of these companies, as well as many, many hot startups. So okay, and we've got a workshop next week, and that workshop is not August 27th. That workshop is next week, and it's 3 days, 90 minutes a day. We meet at noon. And if you like what you hear today, come join me for 3 days. It's so much fun. So it's the 3 days to success. It's going to be our fall resume workshop. Day one, we focus on powerful storytelling, really nailing the story that you're telling with your companies, your job titles, and your dates. Day two, we build that out and we build trust with specificity. So, and you'll learn a little bit about that today. And then day three, we bring it all together with a really powerful top statement, as well as talk about how to translate that into LinkedIn, etc. So before we get to the secrets, I just want to talk through a few kind of core concepts for how I look at resumes, because it can really help. So as we talk about making choices about your resume today, because your resume is a marketing document, and so we can make some creative choices, but we need some bounds about where those creative, like what's a good creative choice and what's a bad creative choice. So my 4-point litmus test is it has to be honest because there's no need to lie, but it also has to be well positioned. So honesty can come from a couple different lenses, right? If you go, hey, Gretchen, tell me about your career transition. And I say, like, why'd you transition to becoming a coach? And I go, well, I was really burnt out. That's honest, but it's not well positioned. I could say, well, as I saw my daughter go through her career and me go through my career, I really saw that there was a big opportunity to develop more support and more science for professionals as they planned and grew in their careers. And that's why I did it. That's also honest, but it's well positioned. You see the difference? So burnt out, not well positioned. So it also has to be relevant, right? So and so what relevance means is that we want to speak in the language and success criteria of the positions we are going after. So often I see people have a lot of things that aren't relevant on their resumes. So they'll talk about a lot of experience that's not relevant. And what does that do? That actually, like, it's all professional branding is a statement about what our best work looks like and how we go about doing it. The more we talk about things on our resume that are not relevant to the type of jobs that we're trying to get, the more we're branding ourselves as a foreigner, right? So we don't want to be branded as a stranger in a strange land. We want to show people that we're there. And so feel free to shave off some of the stuff that's not relevant. Your resume is not a transcript. It is a marketing document that's there to connect with hiring teams to help them build confidence that you can do the job, because this is all about secrets to a resume that can get you hired. The fourth point of my litmus test is it also has to feel good. Everything on there has to feel good for you to represent. And so anything that makes you feel impostery or anything like that, we really either want to make peace with it because we don't want to get asked questions about things that bring up imposter syndrome. Anything you hate doing, I highly recommend you take that off of your resume. I have that rule for my clients because there's no point in advertising, like saying, hey, choose me for these things I really don't like doing. Really talk about the things you do like doing. Just check in, see if there are any questions about that. Nope, no questions yet. Okay. All right. I see there's a lot of good chat. So if you guys have any questions, just feel free to let me know. Now that we've gone through my 4-point litmus test, let's go through some core principles of a resume. So I've worked with over 1,000 clients now, everything from chief product officers to snow leopard conservationists. And there's one thing that ties us all together is that we all want to have a really good resume. And but we want to be careful about perfectionism in our resume. If we're waiting until our resume is perfect, we're waiting too long because a resume is never perfect. It's never done. It's a living, breathing document. And so really take a look at your resume as something that you have power over, number one. But number two, you absolutely cannot write a resume that you can be 100% certain that it will get you an interview. The reason why is we don't know what's going on inside that organization. We don't know what the biases are of hiring managers. I know some hiring managers who don't interview people with MBAs. I know some hiring managers who will only interview people with MBAs. So it's really we need to just control what we can control. So the reason why I'm also saying that is I see people kind of wait to go to the job market until their resume is perfect. You want to get it to a good place and send it out and test it. I also see people really trying to get way too many things for their resume. And so it's holding them back from engaging with the job market. So get engaged. Um, the second core principle of a resume is your resume is not you. And this is really important. You know, in my practice, I have a word that I call the R word. What do you think I call the R word in my practice? What do you think it is? The R word. Let's see some people chat in there. Nobody has a guess. Are you guys here with me? Hello. So real is not the R word, not regret. It's something we talk about a lot when we're applying for jobs. And not reflection. It starts with I was. Hey, you guys want to know what it is? The R word in my practice is rejected. So rejected is a bad word in my practice. So why do you think I would make the word rejected a bad word in my practice? What do you guys think? That's right. Rejected is personal. Rejected creates the illusion like I was rejected. And it's so funny. By now I've been able to work with hiring managers of every stripe. I've worked with vice presidents of talent acquisition. I've worked with recruiters on their job searches. And because of that phenomenon, right? Exactly. Rejected. So, and even, we could say our resume was rejected and it may not have been rejected. Whenever I work with people who are deep in the hiring process, they have the career brain blank and they go, oh, how do I know this is good? How do I know I won't get rejected? And I always pause and I say, hey, you interview people, don't you? And they always go, yeah, I interview people. And I ask them and I say, how many people do you reject? And they go, oh, well, I don't really reject anybody. Well, maybe that one guy. In fact, I've interviewed tons of people. I think I really only rejected one person because they were a real jerk. I was like, they were just, I don't know what they were doing, but they weren't very nice. So, but that's the only person I ever rejected where I was like, oh no, the rest of the people just weren't a good fit. And all these hiring managers and recruiters that I work with agree It's just about trying to find a fit. So, the other reason why rejected is the R word is we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes at that organization. Oftentimes, our resume never even gets looked at. With that big apply online button, it's really normal to like have this feeling and this perception. I'm going to click that button and they're really going to carefully review my credentials. That's not really how it goes. Sometimes the candidate pipeline is already filled with internal employees. Sometimes the CEO's nephew needs a job. Like sometimes there's a hiring freeze and they're keeping the job out there, but they're not even sure if they should interview candidates. So it's your resume is not you. It's a collection of words on a document. You are in charge of those things. Thank you, Sergio. I'm glad you like my reframe, and it's a scientifically validated reframe as well, because lots of hiring managers and recruiters agree. So, and the hiring managers and recruiters that don't agree, the ones that go, "Oh, I love rejecting people. I reject people all the time." Those aren't people we would want to work for. Like, really wouldn't want to work for them. The third core principle is so your resume's job is to connect what you've done to jobs in the job market. It has two primary jobs underneath that. So it's to connect what you've done and what you know to jobs in the job market. We know if it's working, if it's getting interviews, and if it's supporting good conversations in those interviews. If it's not doing those two things, something's off and we want to fix it. Now, how do we know what the right ratio is? Because we know it's impossible, right, to get a one-to-one apply to interview ratio. Talk to other people that are out there who are looking, who are in your field. Find out what their ratios are. Right now, I would say there's a lot of variation. But I will say, before the tech job downturn, I would expect a software developer I was working with that had like a well-known like tech company on their resume to have a 1 in 3 to 1 in 4 apply to interview ratio. I'd say it's maybe more like 1 in 8, 1 in 9. So talk to other people, find out what their ratios are and measure it. So, and that comes to my fourth point, measure it in ratios, not individual data points. If you apply, if you look at job applications, each individual job application as something that if you just do the right things, you have complete control over, you're going to really be creating torture for yourself because we don't completely control it. And so what we want to do, like all a job application is, it's kind of like online dating without flirting, no flirting. It's kind of like saying, hey, I'm here. Do you want to have coffee and talk about this job? That's all it really is. It's not saying I want this job. It's not saying I'm perfect for this job. It's saying you have a need. I have a need. Do you want to get together and talk about it? And so like we don't get upset like in the online dating world if we don't have coffee dates with everybody, and we certainly don't get upset if we don't have relationships with everybody we have coffee dates with, because we know that that's just kind of how relationships work. In the business world, it's very similar, except for we don't flirt, and it's about finding people to work with together and offering your services. And just one more thing before we get to the secrets. So your resume is a tool in an entire process. It's really, really easy when we're moving from I want a new job to I have a new job I want to get like laser focused on the resume. And the resume is a really important document. And so I'm here to talk about resumes. I'll answer your question in a minute, Kathleen. But your resume isn't an entire process. If your resume is not getting interviews, there's something off with your resume, your outreach strategy, or the types of jobs that you're going after, but there's never anything wrong with you. And so like for example, like in Hollywood, do we have anybody? We've got some people from LA here. Do you guys have friends in Hollywood, the people from LA? All right. So when your friends who like work in film and television, right, are going to look for jobs, they don't apply online, do they? They don't. They actually go and network because that's how jobs happen in Hollywood. So, and I know this because my daughter went into the film and television industry and I only studied it like a career coach mom would. So right there, your apply to interview ratio is going to be like a gazillion to nothing. Your outreach strategy is off. So get really, really curious. It really, you really are going to the job market. And so get really curious about what's working and not working. Don't just kind of beat on your resume as the only tool you can affect. There are lots of different levers in this machine you can affect. So, and then Kathleen says, what does it mean by measure it by ratios, not individual data points? So let me give you an example. So we see a job that we're really excited about. We carefully craft our resume, carefully like write our cover letter, we apply, and we get a no thank you email, right? If we take that one no thank you email as an indicator of our resume being bad, our job search being bad, and nobody wanting to hire us, that's staring at an individual data point. So what we want to do is we want to create data sets, not just look at individual data points. Because if we look at an individual data point, we don't know what's going on inside. It's kind of like, okay, you get it, right? It's kind of like me going out in the world and going, am I likable, right? So let's say I wanted to do a test to see if I was likable. And I talked to somebody at a coffee shop and they were like, oh, go away, right? Would that one data point be a good, like, scientific data set for me to decide if I was likable or not? So I go to a coffee shop, I say hi to somebody, they don't like me. Does that one person not liking me? No, it's not. That's right, Monica. So it's the same thing, right, with applying for jobs. So we want to look for data sets. Now, if I go to 10 coffee shops and I talk to people and everybody goes, "Ugh, I really got to think about what I'm doing." Maybe it's my approach. I don't know, maybe, I'm picking the wrong people. Maybe there's something off with my energy. That's a data set. And it doesn't mean I'm not likable, but it definitely means my approach to befriend people in coffee shops is not the right approach. Okay. So we're going to get to the secrets. So we ready for the secrets? So this is all about writing a resume that gets us hired. And so when we're looking for a job, we want to understand what it looks like on the inside with the hiring team. It's really important to know the game we're playing. So when if I'm a recruiter or a hiring manager, my job is to source candidates and get this position filled as quickly as possible. It is not to carefully evaluate every single applicant that comes in and really think deeply about everything that they've written. It's to really, I'm actually going pretty quickly. And so if you want to write a resume that gets you hired, the first thing that your resume needs to communicate is if you can do the jobs you're applying for. That means making sure you're reflecting back what the job posting has. You've got the hard skills on there and you're claiming the space. What I mean by claiming the space is a lot of times people will try to use the same resume because they don't know what they want to apply across like 5 different job categories, like product management, project management, executive assistant, and recruiting, right? That's if I am trying to appeal to all those different segments of the job market on my resume, it's going to be confusing because it's going to like tell the job market, well, you don't know what you want to do. Like, I'm confused by you. Why do you want all those things? Don't you know who you are as a professional? And if I don't, like when I'm trying to play across all those things, I'm not putting the right hard skills, the right soft skills, and the right language on my resume. So your resume needs to know you can do the job. Now, kind of moving on from there, when I'm looking at resumes, I'm taking all of these things over here on the left about candidates, right? Their individual, like experience and knowledge, their skills, and I'm comparing it to the role, the team, and the company. So that means, number one, good news for you guys, you're not getting rejected because I'm not looking for the best one. I'm looking for potential fits. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm kind of thinking through, like, can they ramp up quickly? Maybe I'll see like some kind of like skill set that's not even in the job posting that makes me excited. Like I remember one time I was interviewing product marketing managers to fill out my team. And I saw somebody who had worked on SCADA cybersecurity. And I was like, oh, good. Like that would be so nice to have that in our team, right? Hooray. Because I was working on enterprise cybersecurity products. Um, and also some things about team fit. So a lot of people feel like they need to use leadership language on their resume all the time. If you're not going for a leadership position, be careful about calling yourself a leader. Use powerful action words. But if you call yourself a leader, people might think like, hey, this person isn't happy in the job that I've got. So make sure that you're really appealing to that job. All right. So on to secret two. So secret two, we want to understand how the resume communicates. So like there's so many rules out there about resumes, aren't there? What are some rules you guys know, like have heard about resumes? Like, oh, one is a resume should only be one page. What are some of the rules, good or bad, you guys have gotten about resumes? Quantify your results. Okay. Yeah, got to make it ATS friendly. Yep. What else? Bullets with action verbs. Use the plain resume versus fancy templates. So yeah. So a lot of this is really good advice, right? Some bad advice is like it's the have to where it kind of inhibits you from telling your story. Like your resume should only go back 10 years. That's not true. Your resume can go back as long as you want. You have to, like, you're telling a story with your resume. So you're going to want to be conscious, maybe the older you get, about age bias. Or, by if you had some earlier glory days in your career that kind of have gone away, you don't want to communicate that, but you can go back as far as you want if you need to tell a story there. But one of the things that we don't study, and this kind of goes to use the plain resume versus fancy templates. That's a really good one. Um, is that we want to understand how people get the story from our resume because people don't read resumes, they scan them. Just like when you guys are looking at job postings, do you read job postings or do you scan job postings? What do you do? Do you read every word in a job posting or do you scan it quickly? Let me see. What are you guys doing? All right, Michael scans. All right. Yeah. Okay, Katerina. Okay, Sergio's just reading. Okay, that's a joke. Miles scan and then drill down, right? So we always scan first. And that's what's happening to our resume. So you're pretty familiar with this. And actually, most professionals have interviewed people. So I'm going to tell you how you read resumes if you've ever read a resume. Whether I'm a recruiter or a hiring manager, my emotional state when I'm reading resumes usually is hopeful, worried, and in a hurry. I'm hopeful I'm going to find the perfect candidate set that just snaps in so I fill the candidate pool and I can move on to the next step. I'm worried that I'm going to spend a bunch of time talking to candidates that aren't a good fit. And I'm in a hurry because if I'm a recruiter, I have other recs to fill. If I'm a hiring manager, I have meetings to go to. And so 99+% of people will do a first pass on a resume like this. They're going to scan the top, whoop, really quickly at one. They're not going to read any heavy text. So all of you guys with those big chunky paragraphs at the top of your resume, people aren't going to read them. It's not worth it, but I'll show you a better way to do it. And then they're going to go through these golden boxes. Okay. So the job title and the company, they're going to land directly on the first one. If it makes sense for the type of job that I'm hiring for, I'm going to be like, great. And I'm just going to kind of peruse the rest. If it doesn't make sense, I'm going to scrutinize a little bit more. So I know somebody here is like asking, how can I tailor my resume to product manager when previously my experience was coming from analyst and project manager? So, um, if you don't have the right titles, we'll talk a little bit more about what to do there. Some of it is going to happen with the outreach strategy, and some of it's going to happen with how you position, and some of it will happen in the targeting. So, but either way, I look through these job titles and then I scan the dates and then I scan the rest of the information. If it's a hard skills related job, I'm going to be looking for hard skills related matches. Software developer would be a really good example. If it's a strategic job, I'm going to be looking for scope, results. Either way, I'm going to be kind of like, how much do I trust this? And what did they actually work on while I'm thinking about it? And 7 seconds later, I'm going to decide if I'm going to give it a second look or not. Now, when you guys hear that, does that make you feel more confident, less confident, or the same confident? Let me see. How are you guys feeling now that you know how people are looking at resumes? All right, I'll talk about consulting stuff. Um, Long line length. Okay, great. We've got some great questions. So, um, okay, a little bit better, kind of the same. Okay, good. So sometimes this freaks people out. Sometimes they feel empowered. Sometimes people are like, cool. But if we know that this is how people are getting the story of your resume, now we need to know how to look at your resume. In fact, in the first day of my resume workshop, we strip everything away and we just focus on how we're going to story tell the job titles, the dates, and the companies, because that's a really important part. Um, so, so with that, how knowing how recruiters and hiring managers are going to look at your resume, it can help to define some goals, like what you want your resume to communicate. So I saw we have somebody who's in the middle of a career transition, like moving into product management. What are the three things? I think that's Kathleen. Is that right? So Kathleen, what are some things, like three goals you have for your resume? What are three things you want to make sure that product management hiring teams know about what you've done? Let me see. I'll let you think about that. But to start architecting your resume, it can really help to define goals. For example, I just started rewriting my resume, and my goals for the resume, it was for a specific thing. I'm applying to an educational program that requires a resume to be submitted to it. It's learning a trauma-informed approaches from some really fancy people in the space, which I'm very excited about. And my goals for my resume were, number one, to highlight my expertise and my studies in trauma-informed coaching approaches. Number two, to tie how I use those to positive results in career. And number three, to reconcile how I talk about my past tech experience in language that makes sense to those people. Because if I talk about enterprise security analytics, it's not going to make any sense. So those were my three. And it can really help if you think through your three goals for your resume. So moving on to secret three, we've got our goals. Now we need to construct the first line story, which is the titles, the companies, and the dates. So some common challenges with this can be, I've got a meaningful title, but I've got a confusing company. And this happens all the time. Like sometimes like a company is pretty cool, but some people don't know what it is. We want to describe it, and we want to describe it in the language and success criteria of the industry that we're going after. So, for example, let's say there is a startup, okay, that I worked for. Actually, let me take a real world example. I worked for a startup called Vormetric. A lot of people hadn't heard of Vormetric because we were growing. And so if I was applying for more product and marketing leadership roles for other startups, I would use startup language to describe it. So I would say it was a late stage Series E, cybersecurity startup. I might even have like funding or some number to help give it some scope. But that will help startups understand what space I was in, especially if it's cybersecurity. I'd want to say it was a data security startup. Um, so if your company is confusing, give it a description, okay? But just make sure that that description speaks the language of the industries you're applying for. If I was applying to healthcare, right, I probably wouldn't describe Vormetric as a data security, like as a late stage startup. I probably, let's say I decided to switch to healthcare, I would describe Vormetric as a data security company serving top healthcare, government, and tech, companies. So I'd make sure that there was relevance there for healthcare. So another challenge with titles and companies is meaningful company and confusing job titles. So now a lot of us get really terrible job titles. I can't tell you how often I get called in to help people who have been given really terrible job titles. And so if we have a confusing job title, but a meaningful company, we definitely want to highlight the company, right? So a meaningful company might be, let's say I'm in healthcare. Kaiser Permanente would be a meaningful company. Let's say I'm in artificial intelligence, right? Cohere would be a meaningful company. Let's say I'm in HR. Oh, let's say I'm in Martech, right? Well, then Sprinkler would be a meaningful company. It would be something that I know, right? So I can immediately understand what they do and what kind of stuff you've worked on. So, and then I want to give myself a descriptive title. Now, when we go ahead to give ourselves descriptive titles, we want to be careful that we don't break the honesty rule. Who here has a title that just doesn't accurately describe what they've done at all? Does anybody here struggling with that problem? Okay. All right, Katerina. And so maybe Katerina, like, was your job analyst, but actually, okay, ad monetization manager. Yes. So, ad monetization manager. What do you do as an ad monetization manager, Byron? Tell me. And Monica, if you have one that undersold the work you did, that's still the same challenge. If it undersells, it's the same challenge. Okay, so Katerina, it sounds like you were doing a hybrid role where you were project management and product management. Is that right? And Byron, I want to know what an ad monetization manager does. Can you let me know? It's not digital marketing, is it? Just see. Byron's not answering me. Okay. All right. So yeah, so you were both. And so you can use a descriptive title because if your title was just project manager and you did other things that were kind of more product management-y, project manager can be a lie. Let me give you an example here. So I had a client who had the title of software engineering manager. Okay. Software engineering manager. How many people do you think would report to a software engineering manager? What do you guys think? Let me know. Five. One, five to seven. Exactly. At least three. Okay. A dozen at most. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to let you guys put on your career coaching hats. All right. So you are now career coaches. What would you do with a client that had the title software engineering manager, but had 150 engineers reporting to him with all kinds of like other managers and stuff like that? What would you do with that client? What would you guys recommend? What do you think? 150 engineers. I've got the title software engineering manager. It is effectively a director. So we definitely want to say the number, right? But we can't say director because director is a lie. Like VP, director, those are things. So we like that's not honest. So yes. So, right. So, you guys are already thinking about it. So, the solution that this client and I came up with is we gave him a descriptive title, head of software engineering, comma, the software, and a description for the type of software he was responsible for building. So, that helped a lot because sometimes, because we've got all kinds of bias as to what specific titles mean, right? Sometimes the actual title we have is a lie. So, and so who's the one whose title is underselling what they do? Like Monica, do you mind sharing what your title is? And um, while we're waiting for Monica, if she wants to share, I had another client. Okay, yeah, coordinator. Oh, yeah, that's the worst, isn't it? So, marketing coordinator. And I'm guessing you did a lot more than marketing coordinator, right? Okay. And so, okay, so you were, yeah, so you were doing so I would use a descriptive title and like we want to be careful because like sometimes when it comes to coordinator and it's confusing, um, oh, there's no marketing person above me, right? And so, um, like you could call yourself marketing lead. A marketing lead doesn't have the manager, coordinator, director, da da da. But if you are leading marketing, that's a good way to describe what you do in a way that doesn't undersell it. So does that help with like marketing lead, comma, and then describe the types of marketing that you are covering? So in that case, then we are being honest. Okay. So because we're just describing what you did, if you're leading marketing, then you're leading marketing. Um, so somebody, absolutely. So somebody here like said, "Oh, I've got like I work for a consulting company. What do I do here?" Now, if your consulting company is well known, like that's kind of a little bit of a rabbit hole to go into. But if you're working on long term, like I had a client and she worked for like one of these consulting firms and you go and you work at the client site like effectively like in a role for quite some time. And so the way that we covered that, because our goals for her resume, so it's all tied to your resume goals, our goals for her resume were to help people understand the large scale programs that she had had leadership positions for And number two, she'd done a lot of work on legacy systems like mainframes. And so our second goal was to really highlight the cloud work that she'd done and unbrand her in mainframe, both in her head and on the paper. And so like we just got rid of any mention of mainframe and let maybe one, like we had one or two before it was all over the place, right? And then we really talked about the cloud transformation projects that she did. With her, with those, we did call out her clients, and so we kind of had her consulting title, and then we had project titles underneath. So we kind of cascaded them. For those of you who are freelancing or might have a lot of consulting gigs like right on top of each other, these dates over here, we don't want a bunch of short stint dates. So, and whoops, I'm moving ahead. All right. So we don't want a bunch of short stint dates because people are just looking so quickly, like they're not really thinking through everything. And so if you have a bunch of consulting gigs, wrap them all up together under consulting and then name the consulting gigs. But don't have like, I see so many resumes and it's like, oh, 2020 to 2020, 2020 to 2020, 2020 to 2021, like bucket those all together so you get a nice chunk of time there. Byron's asking thoughts about not putting months to hide any brief or gaps in employment between jobs. So we can do that. That's absolutely a choice. The ATS is going to force us to put in months. It just will. That's kind of what it does. So we can do that. And it's really, that's why, on the first day of my workshop, we strip everything away except for the dates and the titles and the companies and really get that first line story right. Sometimes we will want to have months, sometimes we won't want to have months. And it just goes to what is going to tell the best story to the job market in an honest, well-positioned, relevant, and makes you feel good sort of way. Sometimes I help clients get rid of a job. Like, I have a job in my job history, I have nothing good to say about. Like literally, they hired me for something. And then 2 weeks after they hired me, a new like senior vice president came on board. And then they changed my entire job to be everything that I hated doing and wasn't good at. It just wasn't set up for success, right? So I've taken that off my resume because I don't want to talk about it. Like there's no point. So you can also choose what you want to put on and off your resume. So, all right. So let's take a look at job titles and story transformations, okay? So I went and found LinkedIn. It's really easy to see kind of somebody's top line from LinkedIn with the UX. So I went and found somebody on LinkedIn. I'm gonna have to shift up this one for next time. I've covered this guy enough. But this guy, if we can see, I know it's kind of tiny, but he is seeking new opportunities in fundraising and development. So for those of you who don't know what fundraising and development is, it's a role in nonprofit where your job is to raise all the money that a nonprofit needs. And so here, I want you guys to take a look at his job titles and his companies and tell me what you think about his work history if he's applying to fundraising and development. What do you guys think? What's your impression? There is some lack of experience in the field he's looking for sure. What do you think about the career path? Anybody want to be a career coach with me? Sergio is. What do you guys think? Okay. Yeah, it's not linear. It's kind of like I'm going all over the place, right? And so it shows a lack of focus, right? If I was going to look at this, I would be like, oh, do you know what you want to do? And so I did. So basically, if I was even going to just change this, um, I would shift some things around. I would call him a customer experience representative, luxury goods. The reason why I did that is because what I know about fundraising and development is that these people have to work with high net worth individuals. And I want somebody that can take really good care of high net worth individuals to work for my fundraising and development group. I changed client associate to account associate, and I changed sales development representative to development representative because that's speaking in the language and success criteria. It's not going to feel so foreign to a nonprofit. And then I'm getting rid of the restaurant and I'm getting rid of the teaching assistant stuff because it's just not relevant. Like we might say, internship or something, but we don't want to talk about a bunch of careers that aren't related to the career we have. We want to put the jobs that we do have in language that the hiring organization can understand. And it's probably a good moment for me to pause and talk about jargon a little bit. So have you guys noticed that in each industry segment, and in each profession and each level, like they each have their own jargon? Have you guys noticed that? Like in jargons, just like what we call things, professional terms are all different. And so I've studied this a lot because it's so powerful. And I'll pause for questions in a minute, okay? So you can keep putting your questions in. I'll get to them. But jargon is a really important thing. When I say it needs to speak in the language and success criteria of the jobs you want, I mean you have to use the right jargon. And the reason why you have to use the right jargon is it's a very tribal thing, interestingly enough, because like when we're hiring people, we're getting ready to let people into the tribe that control our daily experience, our income, our professional reputation, all of that stuff. We've developed all this professional jargon so we know what tribe everybody is in. It's a very tribal thing. And I'll do a quick example. So we've got people here from the San Francisco Bay Area. So for the San Francisco Bay Area people, if I said, "Hey, you guys, I had such a good weekend last weekend. I went to San Fran." What would that tell you about me? I went to San Fran. What would that tell you? Not local. Exactly. I'm not from there. Exactly. Oh, and for my friends in Los Angeles, if I said I was driving on 101, what would that tell you about me? I was driving on 101. Exactly. I should say the 101. And this is just in our everyday lives. We use language to understand what yes, please don't say Frisco. So for those of you who are not from San Francisco, if you want to sound like a local, you call it the city, you can call it SF, right? But you do not call it San Fran. You also do not call it Frisco. If you are in LA, you call all freeways, you start all freeways with calling it the five, the 101. Up here in Northern California, we just call it 101 and five and stuff like that. So that's just how we can tell each other apart. And it's the same thing with your resume. So the way you know what language you need to speak, it's all in the job postings. So just be reflective of the language of the job postings. It's kind of like the job posting says, we want this. And then your resume should say, I do these things. And you can just reflect back the language with some specificity. It makes it so much easier. So with that, I'm going to do one more thing and then I'll cover some questions that are in the thread. So we're going to do another thing. Okay. Are you guys ready? You guys are going to be a hiring team now. Are you guys ready to be a hiring team? Perfect. Sergio's ready. All right. So you guys are on my hiring team, and we're going to look for content. We're going to look at content from two different resumes, and we're getting ready to hire a director of IT. Okay, so we're looking for a director of information technology. And I'm going to show you two different profiles, and you tell me which one you want to interview. You can only choose one. All right. Oh, I skipped it. Anyway, all right. Here's one. Okay, here's candidate one. So just take a quick look at that. I'll give you a minute. And here's candidate two. Candidate one, candidate two. Which one? Okay, so we've got two, lots of twos. Okay. And here's the thing, you guys, it's the same person. So this was a client's resume before they came to me, and this is after. And so this is going to lead us to secret number three. And secret number three is building trust with specificity. Why did you guys like two better? Why would that be the candidate that you'd want to interview? Okay, yeah, you saw some metrics, quantified results. There's some results. There's also, I could tell what they were doing. Yeah, I could see like impact and outcomes. I could see technologies and stacks. I could see that the person did it. Exactly. And he was using the language of IT, detailed use of acronyms, tools, etc. Exactly. And so secret three is so, and we cover this on the second day of the resume workshop, is how to build trust with specificity. If the language in our resume sounds like a job posting, right? If it's like this, because this sounds like a job posting, doesn't it? This could either be in a resume or a job posting because there's no specificity. Could be anywhere. This breathes life into it. So I really trust that the person has done it. So one good way to do it is go through the job posting and reflect bullet content back in mini stories. Okay, thanks, Tara. It was nice having you. And so a way to generate a mini story is what I did, how I did it, why I did it, and what were the results. So, for example, like this looks like a job posting, successfully direct company-wide security efforts across IT, communications, HR, legal, facilities management, among others. Let's say that was in a job posting, right? So if I was going to reflect that back, what did I do? So I directed security efforts, like across IT, compliance, etc. How I did it, by conducting a detailed risk assessment and, working with cross-functional partners to define priorities and requirements, and why I did it to comply with HIPAA, SOX, GDPR, and what were the results? Well, the results were we like effectively vastly lowered our risk profile and we improved our audit or whatever it is. That's a big, long, messy bullet. Then you just take the most interesting parts of that and you've got a really good resume bullet. So go back here. So, all right. And so you guys can just see them back and forth. So now I'm going to pause. I'm going to go to a couple questions because I saw them. I saw somebody said, okay, months. Somebody asked me a question. Should I list a career break on my resume? So Nikki asked that. So Nikki, if you're listening, let me know like how recent your career break was. Here's my thing about career breaks. If they're a while ago, like if they're 4 years ago and they weren't that long, like don't worry about them. If they were even just 6 months, don't worry about them that much. If they're longer, and especially if they're recent, especially if they're right now, we probably want to say some stuff about them. Okay, it was 4 years ago and 8 years long. So since it was really long, I would basically just describe what it was, whether it was family leave or, whether you were like writing the great American novel, whatever it was, as long as it's honest, well positioned, and relevant. Now, if it's just like, there's a gap of like a year, 4 years ago, you can choose to talk about it or not. A lot of people are afraid when it comes to career gaps that they're going to get into an interview situation with somebody that's going to be like, tell me where you were, like between this time. Do you really want to work? Do you really care? Like that's kind of all of our worst nightmare, right? When we think about that. And like my question is, do you guys want to work for somebody like that? Like really, would you want to work for somebody that like, was so distrustful that they couldn't like handle a simple description or a simple gap of like something in your career like 4 years ago? Most of us would not. And so, let people, especially for those of you who already have job offers. I know it's hard when you don't have a job and you're looking, but the way people interview us tells us a lot about them. Let's listen to who they are, right? So that's pretty important. A consulting job, listen with a one sentence description. That should be fine. You can like your resume is it's a one-way conversation. We don't get to have a two-way conversation in a resume. It's a one-way. And it's the one-way conversation to lead to the two-way conversation. So just saying consulting and then talking about it when you get into interviews is absolutely fine. I saw another question. Career break. Oh, I guess I covered all the questions. I thought I missed some. So sorry if I've missed your question. Feel free to put it at the bottom because I can't see any new ones. Oh, here's one question in the Q&A. Let's say, for example, the role I'm applying for is looking for on-site and virtual events experience. How would I highlight this on my resume if I was co-lead for an ERG at my company? So I'd want to see a little bit more about your experience and where we would want to put this. But you could put it in the bullet content like held events, da 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 da. And I think as a project manager, like events are part of it. So you can just kind of you also claim events at the top block. We're going to get into the powerful top block here in a minute. Um, Sorry, that wasn't a little bit more specific. Sometimes it's like the whole story that I want to see before I provide a pointed recommendation. But at the end of the day, if you want to talk about events and you've done events, there are a few places where you can do events. In fact, let me just show you. Why don't I stop guessing and I'll just show you some options. Let me just sorry guys. Let me get here and let me pull this thing up. Okay, great. So here's like kind of what a resume looks like. This is something that people in my workshops get. It kind of teaches you how to structure a resume in resume format. So, but for example, if like you do events, like I would put like experience with online and live event planning, like events. You just put it right up there. Like this space up here is there for you to be able to communicate stuff that you want. Just make sure it's web readable. Okay. If you're not making it web readable, nobody's going to read it. If you make it this big chunky text thing, people aren't going to read it. And so really, like think about it like a website. Another place you could do it is in that project manager thing. You could just say, you could say project manager and ERG events lead. You could add it there, right? If that doesn't sound comfy, you could say project manager, and then you could say, served as the ERG events lead, and then describe that thing. So hopefully that's helpful. But like your resume, like you get to play with it, you get to craft it and shape it. There are a lot of creative, different creative things you can do and still meet the 4-point litmus test of honest, well positioned, and relevant. All right, cool. All right. Let me fix my template. Sorry, guys. I should fix my template while I'm doing this with you guys. All right. Let me go back to my presentation. Okay. All right. And so now secret number 4 is take advantage of the top bar. So you guys just saw an example of how we can take advantage of that top section. A big chunky statement is not the way to do it. So like you remember when I went back and I said, you want to establish some top level goals for your resume. And that top bar should be a place where you really get to communicate those things strongly. Less is more, right? So for the person who wants to um, express events, put it up there. And so we want everything to be web readable. And here's the thing, like when people think about writing their resume, they often don't think about what the purpose of their profession is. And actually, on day 3, we spend some time really thinking about the purpose of our profession. So I know we've got, like, for example, we have a product manager here. What do you think the purpose of a product manager's profession is? You guys tell me. What do you guys think? Ship product. Yep, that's definitely part of the purpose. What else? Meet market needs. Yep. And if we get down to all of that, why a company is spending money on a product manager, it's I want a product manager that is going to make product decisions that help me make money. That's what that is. And there's a lot of things there, right? There's shipping product, there's like market needs, there's user research. But at the end of the day, I want a product manager that's going to deliver product that makes me money and makes my customers happy. There might be some extra things in there, like maybe I want to establish market leadership position, right? So I can get my next round of funding. But really think about those deeper, bigger impact things and any examples that you have that you've done those things. That's really going to help people be thirsty for what you do. It's really going to help you stand out from the crowd. Let me go back to these professions that we've got here. So I saw we had um, a chief of staff here. What do you think the purpose of a chief of staff's job is? Why are they there? What's the purpose of their profession? What do you guys think? Anybody? Make efficient use of the boss's time. Yep. Manage teams. Yeah. The chief of staff, their job is to make sure that like the company gets things done, like all the resources like that the company is investing in or the group that they're a chief of staff in, like that they're moving to the right places, they're fulfilling the strategic objectives, they've got the tools they need, the right conversations are happening. It's all about making things happen in meaningful ways with big impact. That is the purpose of that profession. So think about the purpose of your profession, and when you're thinking about the top bar, like, kind of really drive it home. So I'll give you an example here, okay? So this was a client that I was working with in sales, okay? And they kind of gotten stuck in ad tech sales. So, and they were really having a hard time getting out. They'd had some SaaS exposure. This is their, this was the top bar of their resume. Um, and it's a good top bar, right? But it we're not really going to read it. It kind of sounds like the flip of a job description. There's not a lot of specificity here. And so when we were designing this client's resume, we flipped it to be all about the purpose of his profession. And the purpose of a SaaS sales rep's profession is to find revenue, win accounts, and grow things. That's what they do, right? That's if I can find one that does that, I'm a super happy camper if I'm a chief revenue officer. And so we gave them that statement because this guy really did do that. And then what do I want? I want big deals. So doing this $10 million ARR thing to like make people thirsty for what he did. We wanted to get him out of ad tech, and he had some real stints at other things and it had been successful with it. So we really pulled out the HR tech, the MarTech, and the SaaS so we wouldn't keep getting branded in ads. He had a great career long quota attainment average. So we really threw that. I also want my sales rep to make quota. So top line is what I really need them to do, the bottom line. And then these things right here, they're like proof points that help me build trust in that more. Like they're kind of the secondary things. And then we like listed all these delicious accounts. Like if I'm a chief revenue officer, I totally want all these accounts. Why wouldn't I want all these accounts? So we listed them because I also want to hire people who have existing relationships. So hopefully that helps you to think about the top bar. And so secret five, secret five is get scientifically curious. So you are going to the job market and you're actually like, so you're going to market. And here's what the best go to market teams in the world know. And that we want to study the market, pick a target, put together some tools, and go and do some outreach. And then we want to measure what's going on. You can use that same kind of process for your job search, and it will help a lot instead of just wanting to be out of the process and looking at individual data points. Come up with a hypothesis. Maybe if I look for ... I will find ... Get together a resume that really speaks to that so you don't have to shape shift and like have your resume appeal to each job, like so you just can kind of get more agility there. Go and do a batch of applications, some networking, some other things, and see what comes back. Talk to other job seekers. You know, because I was in product, I have tried and tried to create self-service career tools for years. And I've done user tests on every single prototype I've developed, and the same data keeps coming back. And that data is self-service job tools don't work very well because the biggest problem with job search is being all alone. And what happens to our brain? Our brain function literally goes to primal brain, shuts off prefrontal cortex, which is strategy, innovation, and growth mindset. Talk to other job seekers, ask them what their ratios are, and like get support and accountability from them. We've done 2 of these resume workshops so far, and both of them, like people have stayed in touch. They're helping each other. They're supporting each other. It's so important. And then if you can't get interviews moving, keep playing with different approaches until you get it moving. You want to iterate, right? So like just, you know, trying something and having it not work and then continuing to try it. Don't be one of those people who applies for 1,000 jobs with the same resume and then goes, I can't get a job at all. Don't do that. Apply for 25 to 40 jobs, see what happens. Like get curious, talk to people, try a new approach. While you're getting feedback, get selective feedback. What I mean by selective feedback is when people get asked for feedback on a resume, oftentimes they don't know what to say. And so they'll like pick on the color, or they'll say, oh, it's too wordy, or, whatever. Like, you want to get feedback from people who are in your profession, not outside your profession. I had a client and we got together this resume, and then he called me the next day. He's like, oh, my wife thinks it's just the worst resume ever. And, I'm really concerned about it. And what do we do, Gretchen? And I said, well, what does your wife do? And he said, well, she's a preschool teacher. And I said, well, but you're a backend software developer. Like, it's like we need people who are in our profession to give us feedback. People outside, like, may not be so helpful. So only pay attention to the advice that makes sense. Also, be careful of those free resume review services out there. Like, I won't mention them, but there are some that like they will give you a free resume review, and then they send back these horrible, like, oh, your resume is bad because of X, Y, and Z. I've sent resumes that have completely transformed my clients' careers through those services to see what they'd say. And all they do is spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so go to the people in the profession. Even reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn. If you're having trouble getting jobs, like, use these tips, rewrite your resume, and then say, hey, I did this whole thing with my resume, and, I'm so sorry to bug you, but, could you please take a look at it and tell me what you see is like, would I be a good candidate for this job? If not, why? So, and as you're going through, this is a map that will let you know some different things you can play with as you move from I want a new job to I have a new job I want. So, cold apply, it doesn't work in all cases. It doesn't work very well for career transition. It doesn't work in certain industries, right? Like film and television, for sure. And 4 out of 5 job offers go to those who get referred in. And so, but 1 out of 5 do. So don't avoid cold applications, but if you can, like, go and meet the people. And you can, like, meet people in professional groups, you can meet them through your personal network. But the long and the short of it is you're going to put a lot of things into your job search funnel. Not all those things, it's not going to be a one-to-one match. I do this and then it moves to the next phase. So if you are applying for jobs and you are not able to get initial screens, there's something off with your target, your resume, or your outreach strategy, but there's not anything wrong with you. If you are not getting to round ones, there's something off with the interview communications, the resume, or the target, but never anything wrong with you. And so use this map if you like to, first of all, identify where you might be stuck in the offer creation process so you can play with some things and get support in the right targeted areas. Just a few more notes. SEO and bots. Like, everybody worries so much about ATS, SEO, and bots. Make sure you've got the right hard skills in your resume. When it comes to ATS, the screening questions that they ask up front, sometimes those are the biggest gatekeepers. It doesn't have to do with all this nuance in your resume. And if you follow my resume tips, you will get like, if you're reflective of the job postings, you're going to be off to a good start. And if you use specificity as well. So don't be so concerned with ATS systems. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt out there about them, but they all work different. 2, AI is great, but use it as a guide, editor, and checker, not an author. So, if a resume, I can look at a resume and tell you if it was written with AI. I can just tell by the tone and the stiffness and all that stuff. And I don't trust those resumes. If people trust our resume, we will get jobs. I'm continually testing new AI tools. I do think that they can be helpful for prompts. I use them all the time to kind of boil down professions into top, like, domains and skills, just so I can have like just so I can pick and reflect. That's a great use for ChatGPT. Um, Prioritize content over format unless you're a graphic designer. I know we have an art director here. So art director, you're gonna have like you're gonna you're gonna have a little bit of a different thing where your whole goal with your resume is to get people to click into your portfolio as well as build trust with your leadership. So those are your goals. And you real also the aesthetic is going to be really important. And so for you, building trust is with the graphic and the color and the look and the feel along with your portfolio. And mindset is everything. It really is. And it can be so tough to look for jobs. It can really challenge, it can feel challenging. And so I know, like, I'm like, oh, don't take it personally. That's a big ask. Don't get attached to outcomes. That's another one. Like, practice detached enthusiasm. That can be tough too when we're, 3 rounds deep in an interview process and we just want to be out of it. But if you can, think of everything like an experiment. Think of the world as your career laboratory. And if you make everything an experiment, then failure doesn't exist. And if failure doesn't exist, then we can truly be innovative. And that's really important as you're going to go find your next fit. So, with that, I hope to see some of you at my workshop next week. I really apologize. I have the wrong dates. It's next week. Albert sent out a link. It's 3 days. We have so much fun. Some things people have said about the workshop, or I never liked my resume. Now I really do. People have really started to make some interesting career moves from that. Sometimes people find out that they're way more qualified than they thought they were for things. So come to my workshops, 3 days, 90 minutes each day with me. And day one, we're going to strip everything down and really get that core story straight. Day two, we're going to focus on specificity. And day three, we're going to focus on top line positioning. So with that,
And
we've got,
it's 90 minutes each day, pretty much your lunch hour. Bring your sandwich, bring your drink, and come join us. And you never know, you'll probably meet friends who will want to keep on meeting after it's done.
yes, yeah, no, it's neat so far, both from both cohorts. We've had some like good stuff. I know even
Yeah.
Iqbal's on here. Hi, Iqbal. Um,
Yeah, Iqbal, if you want to come back, we'd love to have you again. Iqbal's doing our 8-week boot camp too, so it's
oh,
pretty
that's
great.
great.
Yeah, wonderful,
That's
wonderful.
awesome. Okay, well, with
Cool.
that, any other questions or we want to wrap it up?
No, Nikki, we will see you next week. It's good to have you sign up.
Great.
And yeah, if any of you else have any remaining questions, we'd love to have you. I will be sending a follow-up emails pretty much for the rest of the week, including a copy of my resume as a freebie. So we'll hope to see you then. Um, and so yeah, if there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and conclude it here. And thank you for spending your evening with us today. And we will hopefully see you at this boot camp soon, or rather this workshop. So without further ado, have a great rest of your week and take care.
Okay. Thanks for coming and thank you, Albert. Appreciate you.
Oh, yes, of course. Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.